Hey everybody, welcome back to the HoloNet Marauders podcast. This week our layout is a little bit different just due to the way that we recorded things, but up next we have a interview with Danny Homan, the lead writer from Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And so we want to do a huge thanks to Respawn and Lucasfilm for allowing us to do this interview. And without further ado, here it is.
All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to the HoloNet Marauders podcast. I'm AJ, joined here by Jamie and Matt, my Bombad Jedi Survivor pals. There we go.
There we go.
That was really good.
We have a great discussion and interview planned today. We're joined with the lead writer of Jedi Survivor, a game we just think is phenomenal. We enjoyed it so much. It was one of the things we were looking forward to for since Jedi Fallen Order. But yeah, we're joined here by Danny Homan. Thank you so much for joining us, Danny. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. Doing great. Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just hop right into it. How did you get to the point? Obviously, you're a video game writer. How did you get to the point of being assigned to be the lead writer for Jedi Survivor?
It's a wild and twisted story. Buckle up. So right. In my 20s, I wanted to be a novelist. That was my dream job. I got a gig teaching English in Tokyo, which is a novelist dream job because I would be making good money, to have a bunch of time to work on my first novel. This was during the tsunami, unfortunately, of 2011. So all those dreams evaporated. I moved back home. I had a girlfriend. We broke up. And I was sitting in my parents' house and going, well, what do I do with my life now? Novelist dreams shattered. And I pivoted into game writing and kind of just threw myself into it, studied design, studied some art, learned some basic coding, even though I'm a really garbage coder, and just kind of decided to pivot careers. So I ended up working with Warren Spector, the kind of famed game designer behind Deus Ex and Epic Mickey and Thief. Worked at Gearbox for a number of years on Borderlands and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and some other projects. And I was there for 6 years. And after, that's a long time to be at any studio. And I was talking with my wife and kind of just discussing the next steps in my career. And we had both played Fallen Order together. And my wife just fell in love with Merrin in the most incredible. I mean, she turned to me, I remember when we were playing, was like, this is the best written female character in video games ever. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. We just both loved, we were just big fans of Fallen Order. It came out of nowhere for me. I just thought it was incredible. And so I said, well, I want to work there. I wonder if they're working on a sequel. And I really just reached out to the narrative director at the time, Aaron Contreras, and said, hey, I really like your work. I want to work with you. And so Here we are. So, sometimes just kind of should kind of ask for what you'd like in life. And it turns out every once in a while.
That's incredible. I mean, to be playing Fallen Order, and next thing you know, you're going to be writing the sequel, which is just
right.
That's awesome.
That's a dream.
Yeah. So with the game itself, I know we'll get to Merrin, of course, fan favorite character, definitely of ours too, and other fan favorites, BD1, which I think Jamie has the little Lego behind her there.
Oh, yeah.
But so you mentioned a while ago. I did research on you in preparation for this, and you mentioned that BD and Cal have this cornerstone relationship, and that's such a big part of these games because that's who you travel along with. You're always with BD1, and obviously you're always Cal. What went into developing that relationship further in this game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Cal has every reason to be pessimistic about the entire state of the galaxy, from his traumatic childhood through the events of Fallen Order. And yet, somehow he's got this kind of sliver of hope within him that he'll be able to live up to his past mentors' expectations, and he'll be able to protect the ones he loves. And in the dark times, in this 0.9 BBY, give or take, that's almost impossible. If your eyes are open, just, the Empire is just relentlessly marching on. And BD is that spark of hope for Cal. Like, for me, unquestionably. I think they're certainly companions and friends, but BD retains this kind of almost childlike sense of curiosity and hope and goodness, which is like, I don't know how Cal would survive without him, And so, as we're kind of thinking about the relationship, there are times where BD's worried about Cal, in the way that like a wonderfully loyal dog would be worried about their master going astray. But at the end of the day, like they have each other, and that's like the core family, and kind of everything springs from that relationship.
I love having BD there, just through all of it. And like, I know early on when you fight Ninth Sister was one of the big moments of kind of BD checking on him, because that's such a dark moment of and that's really where we see like, whoa, this is a different Cal from we saw in the first game, beheading someone, and then BD's like, hey buddy, are you good? And then they move on with it. Jamie,
As
I
any
know,
friend would,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you good?
Hey, you good, buddy? Pat on the shoulder.
And it's great because he checks on him multiple times throughout the game. And I have to admit, this is the game where I really felt like BD was a character that I like actually could tell what he was saying. Like half the time his beeps and boops like just totally translated for me to be like, oh wow, yeah, that's a good point, BD. So
he's just such a valuable part of like just our core cast of characters, and there's so many moments and scenes where BD is like the conscience of Cal, or wakes Cal up from something. There's that one of those moments early on where Cal has made his way to Kobo. He's reunited with Grease. Grease has tried to get him to slow down, and Grease kind of notices that Cal is just relentlessly marching onward and is going to go back to doing the same old fight against the Empire, and kind of probably destroying himself in the process. And BD jumps out in front of Cal and says, "Whoa, slow down! Like this is your friend. He's trying to help you." And I just think that's like we all need friends like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. And droid companions are just as important as ever. That one Jedi that was buried with his gonk droid on Jeddah that I could not get enough of. I was literally like texting when I got to that point, because they played this before I did, but I got to that point, I was texting them all caps like, "Oh my God, Jedi buried with his gonk droid. I cannot get over that." Like I was
sad.
freaking out. I mean, we're huge gonk fans, so
Of course.
Yeah, who isn't?
I don't blame that Jedi. I'd be buried with my gonk droid too if I had one.
Yeah, so obviously BD1 is super important for Cal, but the entire crew from the Mantis is like obviously super important to him as well. So I think you already mentioned Merrin and how like that was like a big drive for you to even like want to write these stories. When you started on with this, was there always a plan to make that Merrin and Cal romance? Because there was always something there in the first game, but then it was expanded on so much, and I am so happy that it happened. But yeah, how was that entire process of really just building that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, being such a huge fan of Merrin and the actor Tina, it was an incredible opportunity for me. I joined the team a little bit after pre-production, so a lot of those like core ideas of kind of how they would end up had already kind of been discussed and kind of figured out. I think what was really lovely for me as we were kind of writing the key cinematics of the game is, just these two characters who have suffered so much, whose childhoods were stolen from them, who have no natural family still living, and so they have to discover family amongst just survivors in the galaxy. And I just think that story is so timeless, and that intimacy, like you said, it exists regardless of whether they were going to be in a romance or not. And there's a kinship to their characters that made them really easy and fun to write together.
Yeah, and the parallels between like the Night Sisters and the Jedi being both these like orders, and both of them thinking they're like the last of their kind. I mean, it's such a clever parallel that I never would have thought of on my own if it weren't for Fallen Order, I have to say.
It's also just really cool to think about with the Night Sisters and their kind of history of their magic and how it's derived. And for Cal, someone who's using the light side of the Force, to meet a Night Sister, like it complicates and expands your worldview of the Force and kind of how it exists, which I think is also just a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that romance, a big theme in this game was the like attachment versus love, and how the characters kind of balance that. And I thought it was a great job with Dagan, with Bode, with Cal. You're kind of like, there's these characters that have already fallen off the edge, and you have Cal just kind of teetering there. Like he's getting close. Obviously, by the end of the game, we're using the dark side, which was very like troubling. When the first time the game told me to use the dark side, I was like, I don't wanna, but it wouldn't let me go if I didn't. So I was like, all right, fine. But how did you kind of reach that, because it's such a cool exploration of one of the core tenets of Star Wars, attachment. How'd you kind of reach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think attachment and your relationships and how they steer you to various choices is kind of like part of the core theme of the game, right? It's when you take the case of like Dagon, there are circumstances in which he would not have turned to the dark side of the Force, and there's ways in which you can imagine he and Santari Khri and their friendship pulling him back, and so you see those parallels throughout with Bode and his history. And I think part of kind of what we play with is this idea of who surrounds you, who you trust, who you consider a friend, and like what the depth of that friendship is. Because we all have like surface level friends, and then we have those friends who will tell us like when we're really going astray, and that relationship can be more powerful than anything in the galaxy, really.
Yeah, and it's when Cal calls himself Bode's best friend when he's looking for the doll, and Kata's like watching him like, who are you? Oh, it killed me.
I know.
That was a hard scene to write.
Yeah,
yeah, I bet.
Really
Yeah. There were a lot of moments in this game that I was like, oh, that had to be hard. That had to be hard.
I'm really, really glad Kata was real. Like at a certain point early in the game, the way that Bode was like talking, I was like, oh, this would really suck if he's just like lying the entire time and like she doesn't exist. And so when she did actually show up, I was like, whoo! But then it turned out kind of worse. So
yeah, he wasn't fully lying, but it was something. Bode was such a great character, and it was so heartbreaking to find out that he was bad, working for the Empire. But one of my questions I had here, and I don't really know if you can answer it, but I was so hoping that Cal and Merrin could go and try to plead with Bode and save him. But like, was there ever an ending where he did live? I have to know if it's not
that I know of. No, I think that was always the plan. It's funny you mentioned that, like the challenge of writing that final scene, like gameplay before the boss battle on Tanalorr, is that there are valid points on both sides, right? And I think like when you get to like really rich storytelling, there's Bode, you called him a bad person, but like he philosophically is trying to protect his daughter, and his history is one of distrust and of fear, and of kind of so like from his perspective, like when he asks at the very end, he says to Cal something to the effect of like, are you going to be the one to protect my little girl when the Empire comes? Like, he's not wrong. Like that's a totally valid question. And so when Cal and Merrin are kind of heading there, it's like we really tried to hit both sides of this, and this understanding of like fear and how it drives people's decisions.
Yeah. I know we've mentioned Dagon a bit, and just the High Republic. We have to get to the High Republic.
yes, we have to get to the High Republic.
Jamie,
oh
I know
gosh.
you had a question. Yeah.
So like the moment like the trailers like first dropped for us, and like people saw that there was a High Republic Jedi in it, everyone was like losing their mind. We did not expect this much High Republic to be in this game though, since this is this brand new era of Star Wars within the past 3 years or so. What was that like working with everything with the High Republic and working with like that team as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was it was just an incredible opportunity. I will admit that when I joined Respawn, probably my Star Wars knowledge was much less than y'all collectively, and I do a lot of catch up. But I think when I think about the value of the High Republic, even just regardless of all the cool lore and the interesting kind of opportunity to explore that part of Star Wars timeline, it's, to me, the High Republic always felt a little bit like potentially like King Arthur, and the Knights of the Round, and when you first meet Z, she kind of carries that ethos of like, oh, things were wonderful and we were gallivanting around, and of course that's not the truth. That's a version of the truth, and as we kind of come to discover with Dagon and Santari Khri, every period of time is a complicated period of time, and there are terrible and wondrous forces at work, even in the High Republic. And so for us as storytellers, having this High Republic Jedi serve as a counterbalance to Cal, because Cal's, his entire childhood and his training was taken from him, and he found a mentor in Cere, and I think to some extent he's still kind of searching for other mentors and guidance. And this opportunity of Dagon could have been this incredible window into the Jedi Order of that time, and instead it kind of it proves his cynicism and the corruption of power, which is awful for Cal but great for storytelling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he bled a kyber crystal. That was incredible to
good drawing.
see on screen. And so like we actually got like that scene of him, the 200 years of rage just pent up. And
100 years of rage, yep.
First time we've seen a bled kyber crystal on screen. So first time we've seen that process. I just love it. He wakes up, it stretches a little bit, and then he's like, time to bleed my crystal. Gets
Stretches with one arm.
One arm.
with one arm, of course. Yeah, it's more like this.
Those were troubled dreams. You have to imagine 200 years of troubled dreams.
Yeah, and then waking up and being like, oh, the order's gone. Like everything, the whole galaxy is different. I mean, such a cool character to like explore that with.
I just have to ask, like with working with the High Republic stuff, did you guys and the team like coordinate at all with any of the High Republic authors? Obviously you went over all that source material, I imagine the novels, and it's crazy though, because that's also new. Like it's all within the past 2 years, right? So how did that process go?
We work hand in hand with LucasArts, and they're awesome resources and the masters of obviously all things Star Wars. And so they're really helpful in guiding us in understanding kind of how and what we can use, and often kind of suggesting things that will fit with like the story we want to tell. So so much of like the stuff that we kind of used in the game was kind of a part of that collaboration.
That's really cool.
And speaking of collaborations and crossing over to other forms or other parts of the lore in Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi featured the path like extensively, and that was one of my favorite things in that show. Was like, oh my god, the hidden path. Like I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with this idea of like this secret group of people who are just ferrying force sensitives under the nose of the Empire. And I'm really curious. I don't know if you'd be able to answer when Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place versus Jedi Survivor, if you guys have kind of parsed that out, whether or not it's before or after. I mean, I have my theories, but they can stay theories.
What are your? Let's ask. What are your theories?
My theory is that Survivor is after Obi-Wan. I think when Vader shows up to Jeddah, he is reinvigorated. This is probably like right after he gets off the phone with Palpatine on Mustafar. Palpatine's like, come on, dude, get back on the horse. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna go kill Cere. And he hangs up the phone and then he heads out. That's my theory. Okay. Probably doesn't go exactly like that, but
pretty much.
I don't know.
I'll say that's an interesting theory.
You know what? That's close. That's good enough. But so did you guys work at all with, because Obi-Wan Kenobi was probably in production at the same time this game was, right? Like you guys were probably writing these two things in tandem. So you were working with Lucasfilm and they were kind of, or LucasArts, and they were kind of giving you this information from Kenobi as well?
Yeah, generally it's a collaboration, right? So it's important for everyone telling stories in the Star Wars universe to kind of understand kind of enough of what crossover might exist. And I think, with the hidden path, like it's such an interesting part of, like, I knew nothing about it. I never kind of imagined that was, when you're watching, like, say, the original trilogy, you're kind of wondering, you're peeking into like how just the logistics of like how people escape an empire and what have you. And so getting the chance to kind of add to the hidden path and its lore, and especially since both Cere and Merrin kind of are champions of it, I think it just was a really natural character fit, and it kind of falls in line with Merrin's kind of journey to the galaxy to kind of better understand herself. And so like how Merrin is it to like essentially go on this like journey of discovery and find herself helping like save refugees from the Empire, right?
I love that. I love that. There's like,
great.
It's kind of like a sideline, but she's the one that says to Cere that like discovered the hidden path. And like I love how it was due to Merrin's travels that she found it. It's just a really cool moment.
While we were on the topic of Cere, like what were some of your favorite moments of Cere in this game? I mean, I could probably imagine the part where you get to play as Cere for me was just unbelievable. Like
Unreal.
I want to go replay it so badly. I got to restart the game up and start to get to that point. But like, just that whole Jedi sequence and her just being on Jedi in general. Like Matt here loves Jedi. Like we all like it, but Matt's like #1 Jedi fan. So I was waiting for him. Like he said, he played it after us a bit. So I was waiting for him to get to that point. But like, what went into, you know, the choosing Jeddah for the place that Cere goes to and all that?
I actually don't have the answer to that question because that was decided before I joined the team. I think one thing that was most interesting to me about getting to write Cere is the actor Deborah Wilson, like, is Cere. She's very wise and mystical, and on performance capture shoots, like she just embodied that character in this way that I've almost never seen an actor embody a character. And so like getting to see our scripts kind of come alive because of her was, I mean, kind of unreal. I think in terms of Jeddah and your general question, it's like, it's a fascinating unknown for me because there's a lot of interesting kind of nebulous history about Force users and revering Force users there. And so that makes it a really cool place for the Hidden Path to kind of have a safe house. And, you know, if you've listened to any of the echoes that you can find around Jeddah, you get pieces of how the Narcus anchorites and Cere met and kind of how everything came together. And it's one of those examples of like why I really love game writing, is that like there's things that we can't fit into the main story, but we can sprinkle them out throughout Jeddah. And there's some really nice little lore tidbits and things like that you can find if you look hard enough. Yeah.
I found the Isopters echo, and I literally texted him like this, the head exploding. I was like, oh my god, Isopters. He's talking about the Isopters.
Yeah, we do our research.
No, yeah, you definitely do. Spammels.
Spammels.
That's all I'll say.
Spammels.
Love the Spammels.
You beloved awkward creatures.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it's Tuesday and it's Turgle Tuesday. So
is that a thing?
Yeah,
we haven't even talked about, we've gone 24 minutes and we haven't talked about Turgle. What's going on, y'all?
Let's talk about Turgle.
All right.
We're just trying to keep it tempered.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just really quickly, aside from Turgle, because Turgle is fantastic, who was like your favorite character to write in Pylon Saloon?
Oh man. I mean, they're all my children. I love them all. I think one thing I think was really successful for the game, which was very difficult to pull off, which required an entire team, I just want to mention, not just writers, but narrative designers and animators, was that cantina. Like that's a fantasy in Star Wars that is not easy to meet. And I think it's a product of just Respawn's collaboration across everything, sound, like the music in the cantina. So the entire team makes our job as writers a lot easier when just that environment and everything just feels so quintessential cantina. I love all the characters. I will say one character that kind of hits me personally is Moran, because his character feels a little different and unexpected to me in kind of the Star Wars canon. You know, he's basically failed as a traitor. There, as you talk to him more, there's this deep sense of suffering and grief that extends beyond just the Empire to his personal relationships, and he just kind of oozes cynicism. And so and he's played by this actor John Michael Tatum, who I've worked with before, and I just think Moran's character he makes great points about the state of the galaxy, like counterpoints to, you know, like hope can save everything. I just think how he came together was really gratifying, and not only a lot of good writing, but just a really great delivery from our voice actor. And just, I don't know, I was just really happy with how he came out. He's in the back of the bar, so some people sometimes miss him, but I think he's got some really, really interesting stuff to say.
Yeah,
he's like the first person I'd always talk to when I got back.
Yeah,
I was like, what does this jerk have to say about this? It's like,
out of all the characters, he probably had like the biggest arc, because everyone else, you love everyone else the whole time, and he kind of is like starts off a little salty and then gets nice. But
Yeah.
I have one other thing about the bar really quick. So one of my favorite
Sure.
things like in Star Wars is learning about in-universe music. And so like there's so much happening like with this, and like we got so much of it in Fallen Order, but we got more in this. Recently though, you were talking about Katsa's little lullaby there, Ghost Story or Ghost Star, excuse me. How did that come about? Like tell me the full story of Ghost Star, like at least what you can.
Yeah, no, I can tell. I wrote it. So, I thought this was always going to be a hard story to tell. There's a lot of reasons why, but I think one of them is just it's a crushingly sad tragedy that Bode's story is a tragedy, right? He's the dark mirror of Cal. He's who Cal could have become had certain things happened differently in his life. And this poor little girl who lost her mother when she was so young, who was on the run, who ended up living on an ISB base. Can you imagine what that's like? And the more you work with these characters, the more you start to kind of really just feel out on like a fundamental level. And we were in the final weeks of our performance capture shoot. We were recording the scenes where Tajane Turner, who plays Kata, joined us. And that scene in Bode's Quarter like hit all of us, like writers, like director, actors, all of our staff, like everyone was just like pretty stunned by that scene. And as I was thinking of the scenes that would follow, the confrontation on Tanalorr, I just felt the need to give Kata something to hold on to, something from her childhood that was not necessarily hopeful, although I think there are aspects of hope in the song, but just something to hold on to that would be hers. And that song kind of came pretty organically out of my desire to give her a thing that she could treasure, a memento from her mom, something that connected their family. That it's a little bit of a riff off of a song my mom used to sing to me when I was a kid, called Winkin', Blinkin' and Nod, which is this kind of like song about stars. And so I did kind of my Star Wars take with Ghost Star. And little did we know that Tajane Turner had an incredible voice. And still kind of just blown away by how that all kind of came together.
It's like one of my favorite moments in the game, and I'm so excited it exists.
For sure.
Oh, that's just so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I know we probably get a wrap here in a minute. I had one question I was gonna ask at the beginning, but now that we have a little more time here at the end, what we all love the Phantom Menace video game. Like that's one of our favorite things. I don't know if you've played it. It's ridiculous. We love it. We've talked to those game developers as well. But like, do you have a favorite like absurd video, like Star Wars video game that you love from over the years?
Wow. I'll show my age a little bit, but I still remember playing like the Super Nintendo side scroller. Way back in
Super
the day.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Super Star Wars.
Of course. Super Star Wars.
The Return of the Jedi one's great.
Yeah, that's the best I'm going to give you at this point.
Hey, I like
okay.
that.
Honestly, they really put you on the spot with it.
That was my first. That was my first Star Wars game, so I'll give you that.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
Cool. Yeah, sometimes memories, die hard.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions as well, or?
I mean, probably
not a single turbo question, y'all. Are we kidding? Like,
I mean,
okay.
Or Scuba Stev.
That's a great question. Scuba Stev or turtle? Yeah.
Actually, yes, Scuba Stev. So, the best fishermen out there have these like wild like stories. I loved everything about Scuba Stev, but where did he come from? And like, just where did Scuba Stev come from? And like, how did this come to be?
Scuba Stev is the brainchild of an incredibly talented narrative designer on our team named Cole Swaney, who is not only the designer who basically put the cantina together, but also wrote the grand majority of Scuba Stev. And he found this voice and just went for it in the most, like, usually in game writing, like it's all about brevity and endless revisions. But with Scuba Stev, like, the joy of it was just hearing these yarns keep going and going. And Cole just found a bit of magic, you know?
Oh my God, there was a point in the game where I'm about to go to Dagongera and confront him in the sky for the final time, the big finale for this plot point. And I find Scuba just on the way there, and I talk to him for like 20 minutes. I just sat there listening to the story as this like big epic moment is about to happen, and I'm just like, oh, tell me more. And I thought that was like such a perfect way to continue my story, because I'm always that kind of guy that loves the background characters. We all are, really.
Oh yeah. Like the game was phenomenal on its own, but Scuba Step put it
Scuba
over the
Step,
top. And I'm not even joking. Like he was
No,
so good.
We
He
got
just put
some
a style
Stev
on
heads
things.
here. I thought we'd have a few turtles in the crowd, but okay, I see you.
Yeah.
Stev heads. I love that. Stev heads.
Look. When we have like a podcast that's named HoloNet Marauders, it's about pirates. We're gonna lean towards the guy that's pretty much a pirate. So, although like Turgle could be a pirate if he really wanted to. Let's be real.
Turgle's like
Turgle
the greatest
claims he was a
outlaw.
pirate. That's part of his backstory.
Claims a lot
He's
of
got some
things.
pipes.
He's the greatest outlaw, greatest pirate. He's the greatest
Absolutely.
Okay, Turgle.
I do love Turtle.
Yeah, no, I mean too.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I can't think of anything.
Oh,
I think
sure.
we got really
I
through all.
I
of
have
I do have
one.
one,
Except
but
Jamie has one.
go,
Jamie's
Jamie.
I
got
have one. Master Cordova. He wasn't dead this entire time.
What?
Oh my God. When I say my jaw dropped, like I was not expecting that at all. So what was it like writing for Master Cordova, who actually was not dead?
I mean, that opening scene where you meet him at the edge of Cere's base was like, for me, like one of the highlights of my career, just seeing that palpable joy that I knew everyone was going to feel like I was feeling. I mean, and I think Tony, the actor, he's got that gravitas that you could have him read anything and he would make it sound so incredibly powerful. And so the scenes with Cordova were, I mean, they were just a joy to write. You know, as a writer, you develop a certain sense of confidence when you get to know actors, and we could have given him anything and he would have been the most beautiful wise man delivering it. Heartbreaking, obviously, with how events unfold, but we were able to get a series of echoes in some of the Jedi kind of like challenges you can find, and that was for us kind of a swan song for Cordova. And I don't know if y'all played through that stuff or not, but I think that was really meaningful for us as writers to get to write, because it was kind of our message to Cal and to players that Cordova will always kind of be looking out for us.
Definitely going to go back and make
like
sure I
that.
find all of those echoes. And of course, everybody's been talking about Qui-Gon. That story with Qui-Gon was just awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's all I got, guys.
that was it. That was the last question.
And that's it. Happy Turgle Tuesday, even if it's probably not Tuesday when you're watching this, but 1 out of the 7 days it might actually be Turgle Tuesday, whatever. Thank you again, Respawn and Lucasfilm, for allowing us to have this chance to chat with Danny. Thank you, Danny, for chatting with us this past week on our show. And then you can find the HoloNet Marauders everywhere on social media at HoloNet Marauders. On Twitter, it is just at HoloNet Marauder. If you've been watching this video version of the podcast, it's usually not like this. Usually we're like separated out, but it's very cool. If you've been watching the video version, you can take the audio version to go with you on your favorite audio listening platform for podcasts. If you've been listening to the audio version of this, you can check out the video version as well on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/HoloNet Marauders, or just at HoloNet Marauders. We'll see you next time on the HoloNet Marauders podcast.